Hello everyone and welcome back to the Power Podcast. This time I am joined by Alex and Kane, as Sam is not here. Hi guys.
I am the god of hellfire and I bring you fire. I'm Alex.
Hello, I'm the fill-in guest.
Oh, pat you on the head. Oh, there's a good stand-in. That's a good stand-in.
So, today we're going to be talking about pyrokinesis, firebending. Yeah, that's about all I've got. Pyro manipulation, fire manipulation, whatever you want to call it. That's what we're talking about. The main usual use of this power is the ability to almost telekinetically or psychokinetically be able to manipulate fire. Basically, you don't need to physically touch it, but some people can. Basically, it can be manipulated as easily as just a thought. However, this is not like any of the other two that we've previously touched on before. Do you guys know why?
Because, when you with the other elements, it's like it's naturally occurring like this, you get it there, whereas like if you in order to be a pyrokinetic, you have to ignite something. Like it's usually a way of it's not creative. It's in order for water bending and earth bending to work, there has to be earth around you or water around you. You don't necessarily create it.
Exactly correct.
Yeah.
It is the only one so far that we've talked about that does not allow the user to... It is the only one that doesn't or only allow the user to control it, but in certain rare cases, or certain common cases, because it really depends, it allows also the user to generate fire. Not all the time, however, like for instance the mutant Pyro or some of the weaker firebenders in Avatar, they can only manipulate fire that already pre-exists. However, some, like the more advanced firebenders, can actually generate fire as and when they wish to do so. Other pyrokinetics can also do so. For instance, Endeavour, but we'll also get into this because pyrokinesis, I'm just going to add this one here, is also pyrogeneration, allowing the user to generate fire or manipulate it. So we'll be mostly talking about those two particular powers. If you're not liking it, sorry. Without any further ado, what are some of the most common types of usages of this power? Now, I've already said the obvious, usual one, manipulations. Alex, you've obviously said the thing that is sometimes there, sometimes not, is the generation. But we'll actually talk about other uses of this power. So, as I said, just the basic one. Either of you got any others? Other common ones, I guess we'll go with first.
I guess temperature control would be the one where it's sort of raising of it, not really manipulating it, but just in the sense of creating more of it, but just actually making things burn faster.
You can't really burn things.
Yeah. So
I guess you could if you were able to reach temperatures high enough, but it wouldn't be like fire.
So kind of like grabbing metal and heating it until it's red hot or something.
That'd still be dangerous. I mean, you'd be sort of like Welder Man.
I burnt myself on the oven not that long ago. So,
if you touch a person and bring them, towards a boiling point, that's pretty gruesome actually, because human body can only withstand so much temperature. So if you
they show that with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Oh yeah, they do, don't they?
A guy can either freeze all the liquid or heat all the liquid in a person's body. And when he does the heating it and he boils it, their skin suddenly burns, but also bursts at the same time as all their blood vessels are starting to pop really quickly, and they just sort of explode, and they just basically look mummified because obviously they've lost all of the moisture in their body, but also because that all of the moisture and liquid substance in their body is just suddenly just evaporated, making them explode. Okay, yeah, so temperature control. What about you, Kane? Any sort of common effects of pyrokinesis that you've seen before?
I mean, that's probably one of the most common ones. I'm trying to think now. What? Obviously, you've got generation, manipulation, and controlling temperatures. And obviously, you can only heat things up. It's not the ability to ever cool things down, really.
No. I do know one, and it's more of a passive, but I want to see if you can get it before.
No, what resistance to flames and such?
Yeah. Because that power is
being
actually
able to be able to resist your own power is kind of important.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you're generating it. If your hands are like inches away from fire almost all the time, or even it's coming off of your body in some way, you'd at least want to be relatively resistant to it, because obviously, like burning your own body just to be able to like generate fire would be awful.
I mean, although it depends from certain shows, because I mean, like in the Avatar, you can clearly be burnt by other fire users, like you're practically a normal person. Yeah. But your own fire that you generate, you seem to have no trouble having like any effect from it.
I'd say probably the heat resistance comes from the factor of like there's a sort of a difference in the temperature, and also a difference in the actual like flames itself. For instance, if you're if you're suddenly having bursts of flame just suddenly apparate, and you're controlling it away from your body, that would probably mean that like you are still feeling the warmth, but it's nowhere near as painful, or even if they do or don't have a resistance to it. But then when they're being directly hit by fire, it's actually physically touching their skin rather than just relatively close to it.
Well, I was also going to say, in Avatar, it's also chi manipulation, isn't it, to a certain degree? So
I guess so, yeah.
You could also make the argument.
Have control.
Yeah, so you can make the argument that they can't be burnt by their own flames because of the way they control it, where because the flame of another fire user isn't theirs, they're still susceptible to it like a regular person would be.
Okay. So I mean, we have seen it where someone else bends someone else's fire against them.
Yeah, you can bend I guess
at that point
fire, but
that would be the equivalent of like grabbing it. Now that flame is filled with your chi.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, that's an interesting, idea. I'm gonna say this, which is like styles of usage, because again, this power is used in different ways, unlike the previous ones. For one, if you can generate, or if you actually are really lucky with the way that you can manipulate fire, depending on it, is it grants the ability of either, thrust, meaning that you can stay afloat in midair, or grant you flight, or even enhanced speed, because that you propel yourself through the jet bursts of flames that you're able to generate. It can even potentially, like, at the very least, cushion your fall, make it so that it's not as, you're not falling as fast, so kind of almost like feather fall or something. But again, the amount of pressure and power that a person might have to be able to do that.
Yeah, also that would be a terrible idea, theoretically, because your body, if you're a pyrokinetic, your body basically still works in the same way as a normal human does. So, if you're flinging yourself at ridiculous speeds using your fire, you probably just kill yourself. So,
it's all down to like how fast, and it's also all down to say, for instance, it's all down to how fast, but it's also down to like how well you can slow yourself or stop yourself as and when you're coming into contact with something. Because obviously, yeah, if you just fling yourself at Mach 1, you are definitely going to be paced against something. But if you're able to slow yourself down,
even if you didn't hit anything, you'd probably die before you did anyway. So,
yeah, fair enough. I mean, to be fair, like it really depends. Because I mean, like,
if you're not going like stupidly fast speeds, but you're still moving fairly fast, you'll probably be fine. But
I can't remember how many Gs that you can't withstand.
You know what would answer that question, Joe?
Let's research. Yeah, but I didn't think that this was actually going to come up.
Yeah. No research. You said yourself, no research on the podcast anymore. Just free-flowing ideas.
I never said no research. I just said that you didn't do any research.
Yeah. Oh, great. Yeah.
So,
our suspicions confirmed, Sam. It's fine when Joe does it.
Well, no, I actually did do my research, and I'm going to say it now since Sam's not here. Fire Force.
No more than 9 Gs is a person can take.
How many G's does a person... It can be...
Like, you're asking too many questions.
No, okay. How many... Okay, just... All you have to do with this one is how many G's would a person be susceptible...
Well, they can't go any more than 9.
Yeah, okay, but what I mean is that, like, if someone would be to be moved at around about the speed of sound, how many G's would they be sort of forced to?
Okay.
How many G's would, I don't know, the Mark 1 generate or something like that? Or, I don't know. Well, it's not generate, is it? Like, I'm trying to think of it. It's not... They wouldn't... Well, I guess you could say they would be suffering. How many G's would a person be suffering at Mark 1?
Oh, it's...
Wait, is Mark 1? Yeah, I'm pretty sure Mark 1 is the speed of sound.
You're
hearing it live, folks.
Yeah, as we do research. I think we're kind of getting off topic, though.
You guys can continue talking.
That's all right.
I'll do the research.
Okay. But yeah, I was...
Thank you, intern.
I was going to say, like, when it comes down to how much power that they have, it can sometimes grant them the ability of flight, the ability of moving faster. There's even something that has been shown before with also, like, pyrokinetic manipulation, which is also the ability of pyrokinetic, manipulation, which is basically, like, I think it's called, like, pyrotelekinesis or pyro/telekinesis, where the user can manipulate anything that is on fire as if they have telekinesis. So, say for instance, there's a candle on fire. That candle can now float, and it's being carried by its flame, or even propelled by its flame, like a little missile or something. So that's kind of interesting thing for that. Is like, this, say for instance, a house is on fire, and there's suddenly a roof beam that falls. The person can manipulate it and make it like jet burst away. Whether or not that's actually only burning the air or even burning the object, again, I'm not a scientist and I don't know how pyrokinesis works scientifically, but that's something that is kind of interesting, I guess.
That would be a very awkward form of travel, like, getting a skateboard and like lighting it on fire, and you just have to travel the distance that you can, but without it, disintegrating. Of course, if you're immune to fire, it doesn't matter. After a while, it will disintegrate through the fire. So it's sort of like, man, this is like my 10th skateboard.
Oh no, definitely. That it could be useful, but it could also be potentially suicidal.
I mean, that's the power in the nutshell, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I guess so. If you want to be a buzzkill about it.
Just making conversation.
No, that's fine. I guess if you want to be like that. No, I think that's true though. Like it is a very powerful ability, but it also comes with its own risks. Either in certain situations, downsides, like as we've just said, the person could be burning up their own body, or even the more amount of flame that they generate / manipulate, they can actually do this. I actually saw because you actually see a character like this in My Hero Academia. Their flames are so powerful that they overheat very rapidly. Like they overheat rapidly, meaning that they actually start burning away at their own body the more times that they use their powerful fire attacks. And then in Fire Force, they do the exact same thing where there's two different types of pyrokinetics. There's Generation 1, there's Generation 2 and Generation 3. And second generations have the ability to only manipulate, and third generations have the ability to only manipulate what they generate, or at least only generate their power. Their generation is relatively similar, relatively unique, so they're quite powerful, but the more they generate, the more of the oxygen around their current body they're burning up, and eventually they actually start overheating and eventually burning themselves up. And I think they get something called, tephrosis, I think is the name for it. Basically, it's carbonization of the physical form. So like their body will now be like horribly burnt and disfigured, but the burning is now actually like sort of almost carbonized, so that they actually now have sort of a charcoaly exterior on their limbs that they use their powers with.
Yeesh.
Yeah, it's super dark and super dangerous. But yeah, as for exactly how that works, obviously I don't fully know. Other than, as I just said, it's because that they're burning away at themselves or burning away at the oxygen, and eventually they burn away at themselves. So again, it's kind of interesting to see that downside. I don't know if you guys have seen any other ones. I mean, one particular one I saw was... this is a really weird one. One particular downside I saw is that the more fire that they use, the more oxygen deprivation they have, meaning that they actually start going loopy and start going mad, because the more they use their fire, the more starved of oxygen they're becoming.
Oof, that's... Ugh, that's I wouldn't really think of that, and it's like, yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense, and it's kind of horrible, because the last person you want, with a mental illness is a pyromaniac. It's
with
just,
also pyrokinesis.
Yeah, with pyrokinesis, because they don't even have to buy a mattress. So, it's that's not good. I was thinking sort of like on that topic as well, being loopy, just having like your pyrokinesis tied to your emotions, like El Diablo is in the Suicide Squad movie. I'm not really up on him, but like he literally just kills his entire family, his entire world, just because he has an argument, because he loses his temper,
and he loses control of his power.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, because once you set the flame, the whole house goes down. It's just he's broken after that. I feel really sad about his character, because I don't think they utilize him very well. I mean, a lot of things aren't utilized very well in Suicide Squad, but
I won't talk too much about it.
throws...
But I do think that they used him rather well. I think that it's how they got rid of him was the poor execution.
I was so pissed, because I was so pissed about that.
Well, they built this character up. They had him have this whole arc, and I understand that they wanted to have it. It's like, okay, now he's sacrificing himself, so he's come full circle. I was like, yeah, but as Harley Quinn said, you need to live with that. Like, you killed your family. You need to live with that and let it fester and let it eat away at you, because that's what you need to do. You need to remember that you are a terrible person. And he's even accepted that, and he's even accepting that he doesn't really want to use his power, because it always reminds him that he lost control once. How many times will it happen again until he finally is either put down, or he just eventually it dies anyway? And obviously it's like he's finally sort of coming to terms with his power, and then they just go, yeah, now he's too good, so now he goes back in the permanently gone drawer, which is basically a coffin. And I don't really like that. I
really don't like that, because he had so much. Because that's the thing, because he was like probably my favorite character in the whole film. I mean, and that's saying something, because I love Harley Quinn so much, and it's like I was just really invested in his story of like how his power works and how it just kind of destroys him, and then it's just sort of like, oh yeah, he's gone.
That brings us to exactly like what you were saying, is the emotional side of it, which I'm now going to say I'm going to say the archetypes, the character styles. As you said, anger can be a very, very strong fuel for it. But have you guys seen any other particular stereotypes, archetypes that follow people who follow the flame, who use the flame, who are the flame? Have you seen any particular?
Is this just personality-wise, or does this go to like looks?
It can be either. I will entirely be open to any kind of like discussion of either, because I already know what some of them are, but I would very much like to hear you guys talk about it.
Oh, okay. Number one, rebels. Like that's quite a big archetype in a lot of pyrokinetics, and like the X-Men, Sky High. They tend to be sort of like rebellious and like, or very willful characters. It's just sort of like they don't really want to follow orders. They go in on their own terms, and because they are kind of hotheads, like literally and physically.
I've noticed when people build those characters as well, I don't really believe in this, but I'm more just saying it very much suits the zodiac sign when they make those characters. Like Leo, for example, is the Proudful, it's the line. It's proudful, it will get angry, it's very emotional, but it's very strong. They're very strong-willed and etc., which tends to be what most pyrokinetics are in terms of their personality.
Yeah, like Leopold from Black Clover.
And the element for that sign just so happens to be fire. So, yeah, a lot of anyone who has let's say earth abilities, the stubborn character who might be logical,
literally Taurus, a cow.
All of those characteristics are pretty much the exact same on the zodiac things. So most characters I think people create tend to follow those sort of basic things.
Okay.
The fire user is proudful and emotional, but they're strong-willed. The water user is emotional, but sort of caring for others, and the earth person is a lack of emotions, but they're quite they think more rather than listen to their heart. So
okay,
when you kind of look at it, it's just pretty much those things.
I think that's quite interesting insight, because you're absolutely right there. I would also say that pride obviously goes in with it. I also would say if anyone's noticed this, is very easily self-destructive or even self-sacrificial. With villains who use, or bad guys who use this power, they are quite sort of self-destructive to the point of they go, I don't care, I'm gonna keep burning everything, but you might actually catch yourself in your own flames. That's for the flame to decide. You literally control fire. You decide what the flame decides. But then with heroes, they're quite self-sacrificial. It's kind of in part of the whole job description of, well, your power is burning you up, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna fire greater shots of power. Okay, but if you do this, you might burn yourself up. Well, it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Okay, then. But yeah, passionate, prideful. I'd also say, in specifically only anime that I've seen this so far, red or orange hair.
Yeah, what is up with that?
Complete lack of creativity.
I know what's up with that, but it's this is weird though, because with waterbenders,
eye color will be similar to the hazel or a brownish color.
Hazel, brown, even red if they're feeling weirdly frisky. One particular one was yellow, because it's as the flames sort of die down, the only thing that you can see is are the sort of reflections of his eyes. And it's the eyes sort of burn in the night, like the embers that he can control. And it's that's another one that I've seen. But yeah, sort of more brown, sort of.
You know what I would like to see actually in these tropes of a firebender with blue eyes, because flames can be blue too.
Well,
so it burns
only
at a higher temperature. So
there is. Well, I mean, Endeavor has blue eyes.
He does, yeah. His whole family has blue eyes, and there's only one of them that can actually generate blue flames. Technically, there was that one time that he did that weird prominence burn thing where it's he burned the head off of a Nomu, but I more consider that's because of that he was actually burning an object. So I it's kind of almost like a Bunsen burner style thing rather than anything else. But
see, that's a creative use of it, though. Rather than just fire red.
He's got the classic red hair, though, as well. So he's got a mixture of both.
So it doesn't even escape it.
However, there is something that is actually really awesome about Endeavor. He actually uses his fire to generate small amounts of fire around his face to create a mask of flame as well as a fake beard of fire. So, to everyone else who sees him, unless if his powers stop working, or unless if he turns them off, he has a mask without needing a mask. His face is covered in flames. I don't know, I just find that interesting. Oh, hello.
I mean, it is pretty useful. Although it feels like the way he uses it more as a flex, because it's more I can keep this fire going and I don't get overheated. Haha.
So do you have beard flames? Yeah.
No.
You know you don't. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Beard Flame.
I mean, it
Yeah,
also is great flex because how many people are terrified of their hair catching fire, and this guy is just like, yeah, I don't have that problem. I have no such weaknesses. And that's fair enough. Especially...
Yeah, I mean that. I still think the greatest use for this is you never get burnt by your oven. You never have to worry about cooking.
No, I think I have actually seen something where someone is talking about this. It's like, oh, pyrokinetic is just that moment. It's like, is the oven too hot? And they just immediately put their hand on the hob, and they lift it off and went, I mean, and then they go, oh, just let me touch it, and they burn their hand. It's like, what are you doing? What? You seem so lax about it. Well, yeah, my body is heat resistant and flame proof. Like, what did you expect? Like,
you don't need oven gloves. You can just grab the tray out
all the
time.
Also, as someone who constantly forgets about this, you could also eat food that is supposed to be way too hot for consumption and actually not burn the roof of your mouth or tongue
or your stomach contents.
No more burning cheese on the root of your mouth.
Exactly.
You could actually... Oh my god, you could do the thing that the internet wants to do. You could lick lava. You could actually taste the forbidden lava.
Well, we'll get into that, because I was actually going to say limitations. Range, and I'm going to say this, sometimes a weakness to, if not the inability to control, or be resistant to, lava.
Yeah,
also hot water
makes sense, but in some other cases it does not, because fire can reach way hotter points than lava ever could. So,
what people always keep forgetting is that lava is incredibly hot. Yes, and technically, base flames are not as hot as lava. However, as you just said, flames can increase in temperature, and it's also depending on what they're burning. And their temperature can get hotter than lava. A second thing that also people keep on forgetting is that lava... You don't catch lava. Like, yeah, lava can melt stuff eventually, but eventually it'll cool down. Whereas as long as... Lava has a time limit. Magma might also have a time limit. Because eventually, once it gets cooled down, it will eventually crust over, and you'll have to wait until it eventually cools down. Whereas with fire, yeah, you can put it out, yeah, all that lot. But the only thing is that if a fire starts catching throughout the place, it can keep going so long as it's got fuel. That doesn't really make any sense the way that I've just put it. I just realised, but. My point originally was just supposed to be lava is a lot rarer to come by than fire is. It's a lot easier to set a fire and then have control over it. But also, like, lava is... I feel like visually it's a lot more interesting because that it's rarer. But I don't think that it's necessarily any better than fire, especially if you think about it this way.
It's more of a liquid state than anything.
Well, like if I said, okay, there are two people in this room who have different powers. One has fire, one has lava, and then I don't know. Say for instance, one of you were then going to say to me like, "Oh yeah, we need to cook," and someone just goes, "Oh well, I'll use my pyrokinesis to get the oven going because for some reason it's a gas hob." Versus, no, I can just put a bit of lava, and it's like. Nothing can physically contain lava. It would melt the metal and the steel. At least, because lava is rock that has been heated to a point that it starts melting and becomes a liquid rock. That means that it has a bare minimum, like, temperature that it needs to be, which is sometimes hotter than most things can physically withstand in the normal world. Whereas in fire... You can have a heat that is as simple as a candle or as intense as a mass inferno or even, I don't know, something that is just coming out of the back end of a jet. But you can, as we've said, you can sometimes control that level of intensity of the heat and propulsion and power, whereas lava's minimum requirement has to be hot enough to melt rock.
I mean, normally lava is about 700 or 1,250 Celsius. So I mean,
yeah,
it's pretty hot.
Not useful in a campfire situation.
I think it goes up to 2,000 is what it said.
Oh, what lava?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas a flame, technically...
Oh, no, 2000 Fahrenheit, that's what I was talking about.
Flame,
but yeah.
well, that's about as hot as the sun, I believe. Oh, wait, no, that's Fahrenheit. No, never mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Celsius.
Not Celsius, no. Get out of here, Fahrenheit. We're not talking about you. But yeah, okay, so either way, like, we sort of nailed that. I'm going to ask you, like, what is the weakest and also the strongest forms, or at least the most interesting, like sort of like, I guess, unique powers in the sort of like the weaker forms, and then like the more unique or the more stronger powers. Like, again, let's go smallest to largest, like ridiculous levels. You have to sort of come up with your own, obviously. And I'm going to say, again, just like last week, it's not outside of this planet, so no going, I can control the sun, because obviously... Yes.
What if I can generate suns, though?
Okay, there you go. Fine, that's fine. Like, at least you've been more creative than I can control the universe. You're actually going, I can make something that is downright universally considered to be the pinnacle of fire. Fine, that's okay.
It's like last week, it's like, look what I can do, and like destroys all of humanity in a single second.
Being able to, Joe, you'll get one saying here, being able to generate a stupid amount of powerful fire, but not being able to resist your fire at all. That's pretty bad, because you're basically you're just a regular person, but you can generate a lot of fire, which means the minute you do it, you're basically just killing yourself.
I don't know. Okay. I'd still think it would be quite of a flex, because you could be like, if you have like a good amount of control.
Burning alive.
Yeah, no, if you withstand it, it's like,
right.
I'm just generating a huge amount of cyber, but
Get back, everyone. I'm about to show you what it's... Ah! No!
I mean, you're kidding though, but like, imagine like a fucking guy walks.
Please help me.
Imagine a guy like freaking walks in though with like all kinds of like just burnt up like a sort of like monstrous body and just goes fire. It's like, okay, I'm not gonna mess with that guy.
No, I'd be like, I'm calling up mental services, or maybe someone that can get this man to help.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say with my weakest
also,
one.
Imagine because the problem is when you burn yourself, so if you don't cool it down properly, like underwater or something, like anything that's cold, you might get infections within your own fire wounds, which means you'll probably just end up suffering quite a bit.
I've got two, but one is a bit more magical than the other one. So I'll say the magical one first, because I would consider that this doesn't necessarily count, but this is a weak fire one, or a really kind of super downsided fire one. The ability to heal people, but only whilst they are on fire. Meaning that you can... So you'd actually have to set them on fire and then go, shh, 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 that's okay. It's okay, it's okay. And then after, like, they're on fire, and they're feeling all of it, any wound is healed.
Basically similar to a phoenix.
Yes, however, you actually feel all of the pain and agony of being on fire whilst you're being healed. Now... Originally, this power could be considered quite useless, because also it does not allow you to do anything else other than seal up wounds, heal burns, and so on and so forth. Cannot regenerate parts of your body, meaning that if you have a severed limb, all it's going to do is seal it up. That's not necessarily bad.
Sounds quite counterproductive in any way.
Oh yeah, because technically you could just cauterize.
Let me heal you by creating more.
Hey, so you know that you have never felt any more pain than that in your entire life? Well, don't worry, I'm about to change that record. No.
That would be so awful. No one would trust you, because like they would just go into a panic, and you'd just like set them on fire, and they'd be like, oh, Jesus, why you set people on fire? Look, just trust me, bro. Okay, just trust me, bro. This will make you better.
I just like that idea that it's that moment where it's like, I now must do a mass surgery. What do you mean a mass surgery? He then just is like walking out of his like office, and he's just like, What are you doing to this hospital? Oh yeah, this jerry can right here, and they're just sort of just pouring it out. And he goes, right, there we go, lights it on fire, the whole hospital just in flames, and then he's just waving his arms around. Once the flames have finally died down and people are been able to sort of been escorted out, it's like, I'm cured. I'm finally cured. I was going to die in 2 days, and after feeling the most intense pain ever, For 30 minutes, I thought I was going mad. I thought I was going to die, but I'm cured. And it's like, yeah, you're welcome. Now there's only one problem. The entire hospital is ruined, and I am completely going to be blamed for all of this.
Yeah, I'd like, bro.
I am dying of smoke inhalation.
Yeah, I'd like, one, you're not my bro anymore, and two, you're paying for my therapy. So, you better get on that.
Great! I am now my cancer is gone, but I now have horrible nightmares of what it felt like when my skin was filleting alive.
Yeah, but burning for 30 minutes.
As I knew what it smelled like as after my eyeballs were being cooked from the outside in. As my nostrils were burning, all I could smell was the burning of my nostrils. Yeah, no, fair enough. Physically they might be okay, but emotionally and mentally, yeah, probably not. So that's why I say it's still kind of almost I in a sense, but it's also kind of like one of the crappiest abilities I can think of. The other one is
go on.
I was just going to say the other one is just sort of like nano flames or embers. You can generate fire and you can control fire, but you can only generate fire in the forms of embers that sort of come off of you like dandruff.
I mean, to be honest, you'd still only need that, though.
Yeah, if you spend enough time, you could get a decent flame, and even not, embers can grow pretty quickly if you have the right stuff with you.
It's not massively powerful. It's like, I will now generate some fire, and there's like tiny little glows of embers. Now I need some wood that's dry enough to be engulfed in fire.
Or if you're smart, you bring around with you the right chemicals, which even to an ember will immediately light up.
That's true.
Quickly.
Yeah. But that's another thing where your support items will be more helpful to you. And again, like, I'm not saying that it's like completely useless.
On its own, it is more difficult and obviously a lot weaker. But if you get the right stuff, then it's not really that bad.
What about you two? Do you have any uniquely odd / uniquely weak / bad?
Oh, I do. Yeah. I mean, actually, what that was kind of cool with the whole temperature control thing. It's like the ability not to generate it yourself, but to just take it from people. Like, you can't generate your own thing, but you can like take it from people. Like, basically you can take someone's temperature, like just take it completely out of their body so that they're like stone cold and like store it up. Just like, and create it there. Like you're not an emitter or a generator, or if there's like a flame, you can like call it to, they can call it to you.
You can quite literally manipulate temperature as well as heat, but you can't generate heat or temperature yourself. Kind of almost like a leech of heat. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it could be really. I mean, it's not entirely good because again, within the right circumstances, like
I don't know. I don't know about you. I don't know about you. I don't know about you, Kane. I actually still would take that power because I like the idea of like, okay, I can take say for instance, I can take the temperature from anything. Instantaneously removing the temperature of something would instantaneously freeze it. That's basically molecular.
It depends how well you can control it. If you can get it to the point where you can perfectly take temperatures according to your whim, then yeah, that's pretty good. But
if it's random, or even if it's only from certain
it's
objects.
Just like, say you immediately take 100% of the temperature out of it, that's, I mean, don't get me wrong, that's still useful. But, if I don't want to burn my mouth while I'm eating food, I don't want to immediately take 100% of the temperature off my food, because now I've just got cold food.
Oh, yeah, well, yeah, like someone who can't control it, actually, yeah, that would be kind of interesting. Where it's
it's like, if I can control percentages of temperature I take from it, say, like, I don't know, 30%, so it's still warm, but I'm not burning. Then that would be great.
It could be lethal, like if you want to like lower someone's temperature, so they don't die.
Yeah, but how good is the lethality of the power? Like, I think that's what Kane's saying is like if you if you have the ability to sap away the physical temperature like 100%, or at least say for instance, I say like you take all of it and it's 99% of its current temperature is now suddenly flipped on its side, flipped all the way around. So it's, instead of like 100 degrees Fahrenheit, it's now 1 degrees Fahrenheit, or even like having it that it's just it was in the hundreds but now it's minus 100 or something like that. If you're taking something that's going like this thing is piping hot, I'll use my power. Or even if you can't control it and it's like this thing is piping hot, well, nothing will ever be piping hot ever again. All my food is now going to be frozen or a type of like popsicle.
I mean, what would make this ability more interesting if you made it stockpile? So you take the heat out of something, depending on how much choice you want to take the heat off of it. You store up heat from multiple things, and say you could just give all of that heat to one object.
Oh, dude, honestly, now that I'm thinking about it, that would be an interesting, unique attribute.
A person, because you could just take all the heat off like multiple burning objects and then just put it into one person, and they would just like melt.
Need this with either pyrokinesis or like absorption, like just that would be so cool. Like,
yeah, technically, absorption would make the most sense.
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean,
because you're absorbing the temperature out of things to then be able to put it into other things.
What about you? Do you have any ideas for a sort of like quirky, weak, or rather small version of a pyrokinetic power?
Everything you look at, you can ignite. I don't know.
Everything you look at, you can. I don't know. I'd still think that that's actually pretty good.
I mean, yeah, you wouldn't be able to manipulate fire, but you'd have the ability to generate it, and because it's based off sight, you'd never have to really worry about burning yourself.
That's true. Okay.
And if you just look at something and it catches on fire, you just like you'd never be able to read anything properly again. You just sort of that's interesting.
I'm more saying it would be a choice. If it's obviously just everything you look at immediately catches ignite, then
I know it wouldn't work like this way because I know all of the Gias are supposed to be mental, but that would be an incredibly insane power for someone who would be a Gias user from Code Geass, because it's like. Imagine that, like, oh, I look at you or I look at an object and now that thing or that person is now on fire. And later on, if they lose the ability to control it because they use it too much, where, like, oh, I have to have my eyes closed and have a bandana around my eyes, and basically I have to be blind because anytime I open my eyes, suddenly the first thing that my eyes see is ignited.
I think the way you could do that in terms of that show is just have it that it's more mental. So anyone you look at believes they're on fire.
Or even you tag it with some psychic imprint, which means that someone believes that object is on fire. So it's like some kind of like, okay, I've now imprinted this weird sort of psychic essence. So it's not actually on fire, but everyone
which would mean
who walks
on a
past
camera or anything like that, you'd see it as the object is clearly not on fire. But if you're there in person.
Yeah, you suddenly go, oh, okay. You know what, that would be even crazier. It's like, okay, I know that all three of those candles are lit, but why is there no light in this room?
Oh, my brain!
Because obviously your eyes will be able to register whether or not you can see something, but if your eyes are then being tricked by an illusion, it might mean that you can't even see the candles. But then as soon as like there's enough light to see the candles, you'll then see the flames on the candles. It's like, why are those candles not generating any light whatsoever? That would be quite interesting, either as an illusion or as an actual physical power. But
the inconvenience one, like every time you sneeze, sneeze bits of fire. That would be a really inconvenient.
See, fire breath with sneezes would be awful. I was actually going to say for the most powerful ones, I'd actually like. Honestly, I was going to say something really dull, but genuinely, I think, honestly, Alex, if you had, like, a full-blown, like, ridiculous range and control, the ability to sap away and stockpile heat with no limitation. Like, oh, I can stockpile heat and it's absolutely fine. My body can actually withstand heat. So long as it's stored into me. But if I get hit by it and I'm not able to, say, for instance, absorb it, it still can burn me. So it's that thing of, like, the character can actually absorb heat from anything, instantaneously flash freezing it. Or, for instance, instantaneously absorbing fire, and then it's like, yep, now I have this power stored within me.
I think you're not looking at the bigger picture. If you have infinite range of which you can drag things in, you can just solve global warming. Well, there you go.
That's true to some degree, if it weren't for the fact that global warming is constant and just absorbing the heating of a certain amount of time.
You need to get some, like, you need to get like a bunch of hydrokinetics in to just stop melting the ice cap. Just put all of the ocean back where it was.
Yeah.
So it's a team effort. Yeah, it's a team effort of everybody involved. That's what I'm saying.
But I would say like large or
Captain Planet.
the ability to absorb and stockpile large amounts of temperature, like high temperatures and stuff like that. Basically absorbing any kind of temperatures, basically lowering it to a certain degree, and then basically that that amount of temperature is stored within your body for later things. For instance, a person, I can imagine that as like a really like sort of end game level boss character who like ends up being like, oh, I've stored like over like a 6 million degrees in my body, as like in the terms of excited energy, which now means that like I could either have one big blowout that was the equivalent of like multiple supernovas, or I could basically have enough power to last me like a few hours going at absolutely like ridiculous levels of velocity and power. And you could have it where they can actually at that point generate and manipulate their own fire, but again they can only do it whilst they have whilst it's coming from them and generated from them. So it's like the second that I let this fire go, I'd have to reabsorb it and then generate it and manipulate it whilst it's still within my control, because the second it then touches something, that's no longer my fire, it's the world's fire now. But yeah, I think that one would be a really OP one, because again, what more could you do with that, like in the terms of against that? Like as a fighter, you're just like, okay, I'm a pyrokinetic, or anyone in that case. It's
I mean,
like,
especially if you go the Fire Force route and you can, I don't know, just somehow stop time by cooling down the entire universe.
Is that your choice? But yeah, does anyone else have one? I mean, Kane, do you want to go next?
I'm sold on that power, to be honest. I was thinking, oh, that's like a really limited power, but like, yeah, you could like...
And then flip it on its head, and suddenly it's now like, oh, okay, what if instead if it was only tactile, it was like it had either an insane range or there wasn't actually any massively specified range. It just had... Let's say, for instance, the extremeness of the heat is based on the range. Like, say, for instance, the heat from a fire, the user could keep absorbing the heat from the fire around it that the fire is generating, but not necessarily the fire itself. So technically, on a hot day from the sun, they aren't absorbing the sun, but they could absorb the heat from the sun and therefore like be super cool, whilst they're like keeping like their power constantly active. So it's like, that would be a really good way, like, I'm going to go to this desert, and at noon I will absorb as much heat as I can for X amount of minutes, and so on and so
like
forth.
training in the desert montage as well, and it's
like,
just so like, oh...
I have waited for 3,000 years, and I have ready... no, but like having that moment, it's like, okay, I've been waiting like 3 weeks in the peak of summer in this desert. At every point from morning till night, I've been absorbing the heat so that I can now have this insane amount of power. And again, that would just be nuts. Yeah, sorry, anyway, go on.
And even then, like, you know, keeping them in prison, like, just take that, you'd have to kill them, I think, somehow, because, you know, temperature it kind of goes over, it kind of circumvents, you know, the downside of, like, there's no naturally occurring fire, because there is naturally occurring temperatures, like, everywhere. So you'd have to just keep them in a frozen box, you know, isolated from any other human being, you know, for, you know, basically forever to stop them. Even, like, cameras and stuff, you know, to keep an eye on them would generate some heat because of, like, the electricity that's needed to power them.
You'd also have to hope that this person who did this has actually also expended their stockpile, because if they had prep time, there's no guarantee how much energy they still have left before they eventually empty it. And also, if they're cautious, they will never let it be completely emptied.
Yeah, although that's if you're trying to outright fight them. I mean, if you're smart about it, you can kill them pretty quickly. I mean, true, guns won't work because they can just steal the heat of the ignition that would then launch the bullet if they're quick enough.
I guess that would be. I guess that would be a difference. I mean, like, either that or actually having it that, like, oh, I've now got it where my ability doesn't... yeah, fair enough, I can't absorb the heat from the explosions fast enough, and I can't necessarily do anything with absorbing the heat from the bullets, but I can at least generate enough heat on my body where the second that those bullets hit me, they melt so quickly that it's basically being the equivalent of being splashed by...
Yeah, but unless you were doing that all the time...
There's
like,
no guarantee.
If you were... someone could just cap you with a silent sniper.
Also, if you've ever had like a cup of water thrown at you at great force, I mean, that's water. Imagine if it was lead, like small amounts of lead that is instantaneously being liquidized but still flung at you at sonic speeds.
Oof.
Might still at least fair enough. Like a lot of the power and the impact is still being wasted because it's splashing rather than just continuing as a solid. It might cause bruises, But again, the larger, the faster, the sharper, the more resilient the metal, as well as the most amount of power coming from that bullet, as Kane, you said, like the sniper, there's no guarantee that wouldn't eventually either cause harm or kill eventually. And again, you can't always guarantee that ability could always be useful and always be on. But do either of you guys have any other like super OP versions that you can think of for pyrokinesis?
Sorry. Go on.
No, I was just saying to myself, excluding anything that's outside of the planet.
Right.
I mean, as you said, the whole thing of generating and creating like either smaller suns or actual suns, like that.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be very careful of that ability, because otherwise you just kill the planet that you're on.
I mean, yeah, minusing the gravitational pull alone, the power alone would be so ridiculous. Because it's like, okay, this small object generates this amount of heat. I mean, yeah, fair
I guess
enough.
Technically you could maybe make a black hole, which would be even worse if you could control the suns you make and make it fall on into itself.
I don't know enough. I don't know enough about that sort of stellar cosmic level of pyrokinesis to actually know if that would actually be a thing that they could do. But I mean, hey, if you gotten to the point where you can generate a sun, there must be something.
I could be wrong, but I think isn't it the way black holes happen is that the star starts falling into itself.
Yeah, pretty much.
Into the center of it, and then via that the black hole starts growing, and then you've got one right there. So even if you could do that, you're screwed because you can't control that black hole. And now you've just made something that will eat away the planet.
Congratulations! You have the ability to be resistant to the heat of an entire sun.
That's a great.
But you're not resistant to the gravity.
Yeah, I mean that's a great villain move to pull at the end. If you just want to know that you're going to win, even if you die, you just go, hey, now I implode one of my suns, and now it becomes the black hole. I win.
This is another tactic that is actually specifically named very well, which is Scorched Earth tactic, which quite literally is, never mind, I'll still win in the end. Even if I lose, or I will sacrifice X amount of stuff to be able to still win. Yep. Obviously, that's quite interesting. What about you, Alex?
Well, I think that it would have to be it would have to be unlimited range. If you a really horrible pyrokinetic would be one with so much range, not even necessarily power, but just sort of thinking about something, hard enough, and then that catches on fire. You could be on the other side of the planet, and then think of someone that you really freaking want to set on fire, and you just sort of and then it just happens, their arm catches on fire. And they're taken by surprise because they're just going about their day, just having a nice family and enjoying life, and then suddenly their arm catches on fire, and there's nothing near them that's dropped rock and roll, so they just if they're not burning to death, then they are getting seriously injured, and they have no idea how it happened or where it's coming from. There's no one there, So, and I think that, and no one would know it's you. Because unless they actually knew what your power was.
So absolute planetary range fire generation. Thought-based fire generation.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. No, that's fair enough. Did you have any other last things to add to this particular one, Kane, or?
I mean, not really. Because, based off fire generation, there are things that can't. So quite a few limitations. So I think that's about it. To be fair.
Fair enough. I was actually going to say, I'm going to ask this because we always usually go for what do we want. So I'm going to actually ask this particular question differently. If you could think up, if you for instance, if you were a pyrokinetic, what other power would you like to go with pyrokinesis, or what kind of special ability or technique, or I don't know, SPMA would you like to create with pyrokinesis? Either something that you've already seen or something that you sort of want to brew up for yourself. For instance, I wouldn't mind, just going off of this one, I wouldn't mind the ability of, say for instance, pyrokinesis and I'm going to be really boring with this. I'm going to say pyrokinesis and healing factor. Because obviously, most pyrokinetics would obviously be really concerned with fire generation and they want to be healed. But it's also just because that, like, imagine if you wanted to do the Scorched Earth thing of just right, okay, I'm going to make this massive fire explosion that's going to be so powerful it can vaporize the flesh off my bones. And then suddenly, like, if anyone's surviving from the explosion, they look over and just like the Terminator, the skeleton's getting back up as flesh is starting to repair itself on the revealed, destroyed body of what was once their greatest foe, only to then start coming back.
I would probably take aerokinesis with it, only just because even then you'd only need the smallest flame to then make a wildfire.
Damn it,
and
that's
you
good.
can make flaming tornadoes, and because that's the thing, right? If you have the ability to control air, you don't need to worry about making giant amounts of flame, because all you need is an ember, and then boom, I've now can control a giant wildfire, because I've just used all the air to now basically make a giant fire.
I'd also argue that chemistry manipulation, the ability to transmute things into either more flammable substances, or even the ability to make them turn into, if made into flammable substances, they become poisonous or noxious. Like the idea of like, okay, I'm going to turn this like chunk of plastic into plastic's quite toxic actually when you burn it, but like say for instance you turn it into some kind of like, you know, like some kind of like sulfate or like ammonia or something, where it's like the gas could either be deadly or just downright just unbearable to be smelling, so that therefore like you could actually make different objects. You could even have it where it's like, okay, this entire area is like made of metal. If I use chemistry manipulation, I'll change the metal into a metal that has a much lower melting point, heat the floor beneath you, and now you're suddenly sinking into red hot metal. An ability that obviously could arguably still work with chemistry, but again, it's just like using it relatively creatively. And also,
I mean, another basic one, but pretty good one to be fair, is fire mimicry, or the ability to turn your body into fire.
I didn't want to say it.
Yeah, I mean, you've already kind of got it, so...
Yeah, it's too much an obvious one, but it's worth saying
still good,
anyway.
yeah. No,
yeah,
absolutely.
It's still a really good combination.
I appreciate
I
that
got
you
some
said
good
it.
ones.
Go on then.
I got some good ones there. Well, you know, other than the ones that we just discussed, because they're all really good and I'd want them, but I'd also go with like some kind of like light manipulation ability so that I could be a giant flashbang. Like, as well as setting things on fire and having things ablaze, like the flame could be just absolutely blindingly bright, so that even when people try and put it out or like try and attack me, it's like they have to like, you know, they basically risk blindness by looking at it. You'd be like an angel from the Old Testament. It's like, avert thine eyes. You're like, yes, oh.
Yeah, but would your eyes be resistant to it? Because if not,
Of
you've also
course.
got the... Because if not, otherwise you always have to close your eyes when using your powers.
I mean, you could possibly have it that the light that you're generating doesn't blind you, but if you were, say, for instance, generating it and, I don't know, it was either being reflected back at you, or you were fighting someone who was copying your powers, and they used it against you, you then do it because it's not because it's not being generated from you anymore, it's being generated towards you, sort of thing. It's like it's actually being targeted at you, sort of thing. So
Also, I'd be wearing sunglasses, so yeah.
Boo, cop out.
I mean, to be fair, I don't even think that, depending on how bright you're talking, that wouldn't really help. Depending on, you'd have to like make them a certain brightness, but even then, if you could just wear average sunglasses, then eventually everyone else would just catch on and they would just do the same. So
there'd be special sunglasses, smartass. So
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't realise you'd be paying like 300 quid for specialised sunglasses.
Because I'll be robbing banks anyway.
I forgot that Alex had their everything-proof glasses.
Exactly.
So Alex, with the always good answer to the questions, I messed that up. What is your other one?
I mean, well, going on like the healing factor thing, I'd be like sort of like a sort of biological manipulation where like that's what they kind of do with to like kill germs anyway. I'd have the ability to like raise the temperature just enough so that it kills all bacteria and germs on things, like without actually damaging, the material. Of course, this would like, this would actually have its limitations. Like there's some things that you can't do that to, but like things like glass and metal and stuff, or even like, on certain vegetables and stuff, they would like, kill all of the bacteria on there, but have as much control as to not actually burn the thing itself.
Okay.
So yeah, just the perfect temperature control like that, specifically to get rid of like, ailments like infections.
Since we have since we have a little time left, I will say one technique, like one specific interesting technique that you've either seen being used or you would like to talk about, or would like to make. Like, I guess like obviously like Pyrokinetic Flight is one of the more interesting ones in the terms of like, oh, okay, you got omnidirectional movement. But obviously, it is such a common one that at this point, it's like, it's an interesting usage, but it's kind of like a take it or leave it sort of thing, because it's not as interesting as some of the other abilities, like, I don't know. I was hoping that you guys would actually like join in there.
Like, I mean, yeah, I really don't know, because it is sort of like, fire is so dangerous, it's difficult to implement it in any other way.
Yeah,
in my opinion, I'm kind of
if you're talking about combat ways, there are plenty of ways. But in terms of just like an average day, having the ability to just fly with fire is pretty useful.
I actually have.
I don't need to catch buses anymore because I can just fly to work. Well, I hope the cops don't do anything to me.
Well,
but,
as long as it's not raining, am I right? I was actually going to say one then, because I'm assuming that people don't actually want to go first, so I'm going to say mine, which is, actually another two set of powers that actually be pretty cool is some kind of like flammable liquid type. Because imagine the ability of like napalm manipulation and napalm generation and manipulation. That would be so terrifying. Anyway, but the ability to cause backdraft mines. Basically, small little flames that just seem absolutely fine, but the second that a person touches them, the flames start dying down. That's that's normal. But the second that person's body part, or the second that person specifically moves away from it, or wherever their specific part was, leaves, it suddenly creates a backdraft of air flooding into the zone that was on fire, reignites it, and then detonates and creates an explosion of a pyrokinetic blast. Sort of almost like some kind of pyrokinetic mine.
I just want flames that pre-program itself so it cooks my food perfectly.
I knew you were going to say that.
I like food.
A perfect souffle.
See, that's actually kind of interesting. Imagine having it where you could program how much the flame consumes, how quickly, and how hot it burns.
It's just like, you're cooking this type of meat, and then the flame automatically adjusts, and then voila, you get the perfectly cooked, like, I don't know, steak or something.
It's that moment where you go steak flame, and then it just creates a flame that then it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to put my eggs on it. No, you'll ruin them. This is a steak
medium
flame.
well steak flames.
Not when you become more specialized, it's medium well steak flame, rare steak flame, medium rare steak flame, and then it's just like for those of you who like your well done steaks, you've got the well done steak flame.
Well, no, but like imagine roast dinners, they take so long because you have to cook chicken, but with this flame, voila, you can make it a lot less time.
Roast chicken, roast chicken flame.
Yeah. And then you can just cook it way faster than you would normally, and voila, your roast dinner doesn't take as long.
See, I don't know exactly.
That is the most convenient, because, cool, I can blow people up, but I'm not doing that on a daily basis. I mean, I sure hope you aren't, but, I do question sometimes.
I don't know exactly how you'd actually get it, like, how that would work mechanically if you were to have that as a game mechanic. I guess you could have it as, like, a usage style in Animite Tales, where it's like you roll one and then you roll the other. And if you get both the roll requirements, you not only make it instantly, but also, like, I don't know, it's perfectly cooked and there's no way that it can be, like, harmful to you, as long as, when cooked, it should never usually be harmful to you. But
yeah.
Other than that, yeah. What about you, Alex? Do you have any?
Oh, I've got another lethal one. Not an everyday one, unfortunately. Well, I guess so. Depends on if you work in law enforcement.
Oh, no. Go on.
Well, like, say for instance you want to disperse a crowd in a horrible way possible, like, and you've got pyrokinesis, but you also have poison generation. and you're on an anomaly, like, you not only generate flame to keep them back, but these flames also generate a poisonous cloud of smog that's not only deals like heat damage, but also like horrible gaseous fumes that make you die of smoke inhalation. So it's like
GP fire, explosions and choking people to death.
Well, I'm sorry, this is what I know.
And all I want is good steak, and here you are trying to kill people. This is, gosh.
In my defense, I didn't realize how good my ability was until I realized how bad it was.
Yeah. Oh my god. Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing myself any favors in, proving that I'm not a bloodthirsty psychopath.
No, you're not. You're definitely not.
I mean, well, I don't know. It just kind of lends itself to that. All I'm thinking of right now, in like the pyrokinesis, is like, yeah, you could do real horrible damage with it.
Did you know, Alex, that you might actually be feeding to the toxic views of the pyrokinetic community?
Oh my god, I never considered that. I'm a monster.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's all we got time for.
He wants to make himself feel better, so.
Shh, nobody needs to know that. I mean, yeah, fair enough. Well, guys, I think that's about it that we have for this episode. Again, thank you to Kane and Alex for joining me this episode.
Hey!
Well, a thank you to any of you guys who are listening to this episode or who have listened to this episode. If you'd like to listen to the next one, definitely check out the #AnimiteTales YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Comment below. Tell us what your favourite pyrokinetic is. And also...
And how you like your steak cooked.
Yeah, let's go with that. Yeah. How would you like to cook your steak? And what would the flame's name be called when you're cooking said steak? Or other meal. You don't have to just be cooking steak. That's the beauty of flames. It can cook anything. And finally, obviously, I'm at AnimiteTales on Twitter. If you want to tweet at me about all of the harsh opinions that we've been sharing about pyrokinetics today. We actually got through a whole episode without talking about Cora. So we're up from last
Sam's
week.
Not here.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. Isn't that right, Alex? You definitely don't like Cora.
Cora is a good show, everybody. I'm just
okay.
Well, everyone's welcome to their own beliefs. Let's end this quickly.
If you want to hear Alex's opinions on Cora, go and tweet at Alex at Obscuracom.
Yay!
And everyone have a wonderful night. And yeah, thank you very much and take care.
Bye.
Ciao, ciao. That's your outro. Ciao, ciao for now.